Here's what's coming up on Network Africa. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame says he'll throw his hat in the ring for a fourth term in office. Eldest son of Ousted Gabon President Rwanda Bongo charged with treason. Plus, Nigeria's Tinubu tells UN General Assembly that he seeks to restore democratic order in Niger Republic. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We start off in Rwanda, where President Paul Kagame has said that he will run for a fourth term in next year's presidential election. When asked what the West would think about his decision to run again, Mr. Kagame told French language magazine Jeune Afrique, "I'm sorry for the West, but what the West thinks is not my problem." Mr. Kagame, who says he believes Rwandans have faith in him, had joked in April that he was looking forward to retiring and handing over power after 23 years in office. The country's ruling party, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, retained Mr. Kagame as its chairman in April. He has led the party since 1998. Under President Kagame, Rwanda has enjoyed relative political stability, but critics and human rights groups accuse his government of limiting political freedoms and suppressing dissent. Meanwhile, over in Gabon, the eldest son of the ousted President Ali Bongo and several of his political allies have been charged with high treason and corruption. Rwanda Bongo Valentin, who's 31, was arrested shortly after last month's coup. There has been no comment on the allegations as yet. The military seized power soon after Ali Bongo was declared the winner of Gabon's presidential election in August. Well, Senegal's President Macky Sall says coups in Africa are of grave concern. He raised the issue during an address to the UN General Assembly on Tuesday. The main West African bloc, ECOWAS, has been trying to negotiate with the military junta. ECOWAS has said that it's ready to deploy troops to restore constitutional power if diplomatic efforts fail. President Sall also talked up climate justice at the UN and financial support for a green transition. Earlier this year, Senegal struck a deal with wealthier countries that will see it get an initial 2.5 billion euros in finance to develop renewable energy and speed up its transition to a low-carbon economy. And South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is calling on the global community to support the African Union's efforts against unconstitutional changes in government on the continent. His comments are not unconnected to the military takeover in Gabon last month, when officers announced election results were annulled, and just minutes after President Ali Bongo was declared to have won a third term. President Ramaphosa told the United Nations General Assembly that the wealth of Africa belongs to Africans and should be treated as such.
As a global community, we should be concerned by the recent incidents of unconstitutional changes of government in some parts of Africa. The global community needs to work alongside the African Union to support peace efforts in the DRC, in Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Mali, Central African Republic, South Sudan, North Mozambique, the Great Lakes region, the Sahel, Niger, and the Horn of Africa. The African Union Peace and Security Council has declared that it stands ready to deepen its cooperation with the UN Security Council to silence the guns on the African continent and to achieve peace and stability and development. Africa is least responsible for the climate damage that has been caused, and yet it bears the greatest burden. Centuries after the end of the slave trade, decades after the end of the colonial exploitation of Africa's resources, the people of our continent are once again bearing the cost of industrialization of the North and the development of the wealthy nations of the world. This is a price that the people of Africa are no longer prepared to pay. Many countries in the North count their assets in the mineral resources that are beneath the African soil. The wealth of Africa belongs to Africans.
This is Channels Television's breaking news.
Some breaking news this hour from here in Nigeria. The Kano State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has sacked Governor Abba Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party, declares the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Nasser Yusuf Gawuna, winner of the March 18 governorship election. The three-man panel of judges also ordered INEC to withdraw the certificate of return issued to Governor Yusuf and present same to Mr. Gawuna. The court deducted 165,663 votes from the total scored by Governor Yusuf, declaring the ballots invalid, having not been stamped or signed. Let's continue with our coverage of the UN General Assembly. Staying with Nigeria this time, we'll take a look at the address of Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, who is seeking to re-establish constitutional order to address political and economic problems in neighboring Niger Republic following a July coup, and says he welcomes any support for the process. President Tinubu is chairman of the West African Bloc, ECOWAS, which has been trying to negotiate with the Niger military junta. ECOWAS said it's ready to deploy troops to restore constitutional order if diplomatic efforts fail.
Regarding Niger, we are negotiating with the military leaders. As chairman of ECOWAS, I seek to help establish democratic governance in a manner that addresses the political economy challenges confronting that nation, including violent extremists who seek to foment instability in our region. I extend a hand of friendship to all of you who may genuinely support this mission for a democratic governance in that nation. Military coups are wrong, as in any titled civilian political arrangement that is, will perpetuate injustice. The wave-crossing part of Africa does not demonstrate favor towards coup. It is a demand for solution to perennial problems. Let us dig it deeper.
The development of Africa must be seen as a priority, not just for the continent, but the world. And that's what President Bola Tinubu is also advocating to enable African nations achieve its development goals. He mentioned this while addressing world leaders during the general debate of the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York. Our correspondent, Larry Lasisi, has more on this.
World leaders arriving for the general debate of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly taking place in New York. The theme for this session is rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating action on the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. The UN Secretary-General warned that the world is becoming unhinged and called for clear and decisive reforms.
We are inching ever closer to a great fracture in economic and financial systems and trade relations, one that threatens a single open internet with diverging strategies on technology and artificial intelligence and potentially clashing security frameworks. It is high time to renew multilateral institutions based on 21st century economic and political realities rooted in equity, solidarity, and universality, and anchored in the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law.
Presidents scheduled to deliver addresses were called to the podium one after the other. Their presentations described their individual perspectives on the world's problems and their solutions.
We stand with the African Union and ECOWAS and other regional bodies to support constitutional rule. We will not retreat from the values that make us strong. We will defend democracy, our best tool to meet the challenges we face around the world.
If we continue to prioritize national interests, private interests, or just some particularistic interests of individual actors, and leave the resolution of global problems on the sidelines, we will extinguish ourselves as a civilization.
In his inaugural appearance at the General Assembly, President Bola Tinubu took to the podium. His address made a determined push for enhanced international cooperation and partnership with African nations and other developing countries.
To keep faith with the tenets of this world today's body and the theme of this year's assembly, the poverty of nations must end. The pillage of one nation's resources by overreach of farms and people of stronger nations must end. The will of the people must be respected. This beautiful, generous, and forgiving planet must be protected.
In a timely speech, the president emphasizes the need for a united front against the theft of Africa's mineral wealth, an affirmation of democratic governance, and ensuring that climate change is addressed with consideration for Africa's economic peculiarities.
We desire a beautiful, prosperous, vibrant, democratic living space for our people. We will do it. To the rest of the world, I say, work with us as true friends and partners. Africa is not a problem to be avoided, nor is it to be pitied. Africa is nothing less than the key to the world's future.
Now, speaking separately, there appears to be some agreement among these leaders that steps must be taken to address the evolving and unique challenges facing the world. But what many would like to see in the coming days is a commitment to concretize the words spoken here. From New York, Lanre Lasisi for Channels Television News.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Betta Edu, says development partners should stop building tarpaulins for the internally displaced persons, but instead provide them with durable homes, finding durable solutions to the problem of resettlement and providing means of economic survival for them in collaboration with the federal and state governments. She stated this when a UN team led by the Special Advisor to the United Nations Secretary General on Solutions to Internal Displacement, Mr. Robert Piper, paid a visit to her office in Abuja. Mr. Piper commended the minister for starting well by visiting areas with major humanitarian needs and pledges the UN support for Nigeria under the Tinubu administration.
As we pull the system together externally, the vision is a shared one as well. So we're all in it together, as it were. But Nigeria for us is a critical test of whether we can really demonstrate a very different approach. So I'm so excited to have you at the helm, Minister, and to listen to you on this. I think 3 weeks in, you're already ahead of us, so thank you so much.
We need to step away from temporal things to more durable solutions for people who are having humanitarian crisis. I agree the first few days, hours, months, we can give the emergency response. But beyond that, we need to begin to move towards durable solutions. How can we resettle them within the communities? How can we help them have livelihood? How can we ensure that they're in the best of conditions and they can reintegrate back into the present communities where they are? Because sometimes it's almost impossible for them to go back to where they are coming from. So beginning to think in that manner might be more helpful than the way we think and plan right now, which is not, by my thoughts, sustainable.
The Commonwealth Secretary General, Baroness Patricia Scotland, has emphasized the need to tackle the challenges of climate change and promote financing in that regard. According to her, the outcome of climate crisis affects health, education, poverty, and much more, hindering the achievement of sustainable development goals. Our correspondent, Anne Wodo, who is in New York, spoke to Baroness Scotland in an exclusive interview on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly.
I think they can never pay enough attention. And certainly in the Commonwealth, it's been right at the top of the agenda. You know that in the Commonwealth, we have 56 countries from 5 regions over 6 oceans. And climate change has been at the top of the Commonwealth agenda for many years. In fact, we in the Commonwealth were the first to identify climate as an existential threat back in Langkawi in 1989. I think there has never been a more important moment when we have to address the crisis that we're now facing as a result of climate. And we do have to be absolutely clear that the money that has been pledged as long ago as 2009, where the world decided that we needed $100 billion to address adaptation and mitigation, needs to be met, and that money still hasn't been found. So I think that the determination that we're now seeing from across our Commonwealth needs to be mirrored by the rest of the world if we are to save our planet. We've just come back from Kenya. There was the Africa Climate Summit, where Africa, which has been the cradle of humanity, is saying that they have to raise their voices, because if our world has to be saved for humanity, then Africa is absolutely going to have to play its part. And of course, Africa has contributed so little to this crisis, but they are suffering so much. If you look at those of us in the global south, 99% of the deaths and the damage is happening, and yet probably 5% of the crisis has been contributed to by those countries. So people are looking for equity. Africa's raising her voice loudly and saying that we have to have change, but it has to be a win-win, and we have to have the money as well as the solutions. And that's the real challenge. And to do that, we are going to have to reform the international financial institutions.
Let's head over to Libya now, where scientists are saying changing weather patterns had a lot to do with the recent flooding. The experts explained that climate change made the heavy rainfall that led to deadly floods in Libya up to 50 times more likely. The powerful September 10 storm caused 2 dams to break, inundating Libya's eastern city of Derna and killing thousands of people.
I think what we consistently find, no matter how we looked at the event, which data set we use, or also which exact region we use, that we find an increase in the intensity and the likelihood of the event in the observations that is sort of on the order of 10 times increase and on the order of a 40% or 50% increase in intensity. So while there is limitations on the data in terms of what the exact return time of the event is and the exact magnitude, that doesn't affect very much the climate change signal.
This event was breaking point. In Greece, we will, from now on, we'll speak what happened before and after Storm Daniel. And this, I think, is breaking point delineates the impact of climate change on the intensity and the frequency of occurrence of such events. And after Storm Daniel, you have to revisit again all our policies for early warning systems, for impact-based early warning system, for extraction of the civil protection in order to get all together scientists and first responders to work together in order to be better prepared for an episode like this one, or maybe a weaker one, but disastrous in the coming years.
Meanwhile, Libyans with the Red Crescent and the International Committee of the Red Cross in the flood-hit Dada have been talking about the difficult circumstances they are facing as they try to reveal the bodies of their friends, relatives, and fellow citizens. They lament that every day they extract bodies in indescribable numbers and try to help children find members of their family in the drenched streets. A week after the flood wiped out much of the center of the city, furious Derna residents demonstrated on the streets and torched the home of the mayor. They accused the authorities of failing to maintain the dams that protected the city and failing to evacuate residents before the storm. And Grammy Award singer and philanthropist Ciara Wilson believes everyone deserves a chance to live a happy life. For many years, she has driven the Sustainable Development Goals on quality education, maternal health, and gender equality with the establishment of the Why Not You Academy. She had a chat with our correspondent, Anwar Wado, once again at the SDG Media Zone event on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in Manhattan, New York.
Let's begin with your approach to education, which incorporates the why not you attitude, a mindset that has birthed a foundation which you and your husband have set up. I mean, why? What even inspired this in the first place?
Yes, so Russell started the Why Not You Foundation back in 2014. And it was built on the idea that his father would always say, "Son, why not you?" And then obviously we met each other, and through our sweet love, I was excited to join him on his journey to continue on the mission of Why Not You and empowering the youth to lead with the Why Not You attitude, because we really believe that if you have that in you, the sky is the limit. And I always say, where you come from in life doesn't determine how far you'll go. That's within you. Your possibilities are within you. So the why not you attitude, you can do anything and be anything that you want to be. Equity is key. Equity and access is key, private or public. What's been amazing, and if I'm understanding your question correctly, is that, I think about my sister-in-law who went to a private school at one point in time in her life, and then also went to a public school, and both were great schools. And I think the access and equity that she was able to have was tremendous. She went to Stanford, and she rocked at Stanford. So you think about those types of opportunities and that balance system, like, it's really important, and I think it's important that we continue to elevate our educational practices and curriculums and continue to be connected to the changes that are happening in the world and adjusting with them. It's like, let's be out with the old philosophies, keep some of the old stuff that's good, but let's add some of the newness to how this generation and this world is changing. And let's implement these things to give kids all the opportunity that they deserve. Because as we've learned and we talked about, even in my first thing I talked about today with maternal health, access and equity are very important things. The combination of the two are very key. I believe that your gender should never limit your possibilities or capabilities of what you can achieve. Like, I honestly have walked into rooms and I think I've been so unaware of what I was up against because I was so committed to my vision and what I wanted to do. And thankfully, I've made a lot of it happen. Sometimes I had to bark louder than I have in other places, but I'm not afraid to bark. Right? And I think that, being able to encourage other women like myself to really know that you can do what you put your mind to, and you may have to fight harder, but you can get there. But it'd be so great that if we could really start to come together. Togetherness is everything. Platforms like this is everything, because I think this is where we start.
And finally on the program, filmmaker James Sutter captured the moment when some beachgoers rescued some seal puppies tangled in a fishing net at Western Coast National Park in South Africa. In the video, the cubs were carefully liberated from the net and ran towards the sea right afterwards.
Yes, it's deep. Watch my. What's you cut yourself?
Free, happy seals. Well, that's the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Jacka Rogers. Bye for now.